Typically, the military uses C-130 cargo planes to land or airdrop emergency supplies, but Urban Warrior's air fleet consisted of no cargo planes, only fighter jets and attack helicopters equipped to deliver bombs, air-to-surface missiles, and high-caliber bullets. According to Colonel Smith, the real purpose of these exercises is to, quote, reorient the soldier to do what is, in effect, police work, close quote. Far from being humanitarian, Urban Warrior's conceptual experimental framework, the CEF, treats civilians as a logistical nuisance. According to the CEF, quote, non-combatants and refugees may be as formidable a factor as the urban infrastructure. Refugees are likely to clog roads, inland waterways, airfields, ports, as well as presenting commanders with humanitarian support issues. The lines distinguishing combatant from non-combatant will blur, the documents state. Further complicating the situation, the document says, will be the ever-present media. Urban troops need to rely on what the military calls the opportune use of indigenous resources. Quote, developing our ability to effectively forage for power, water, and fuel may provide a significant reduction in the logistics requirement of sea bases. That's a reference to the warships that are hovering off the coast and supplying the offshore support and resources. Unfortunately, whenever you do this kind of opportunistic foraging, you're basically seizing resources from the local populace. The Marines hope to control unruly crowds using non-lethal weapons such as exploding nets, nausea-inducing ultrasound weapons, blazing laser lights, incapacitating and potentially asphyxiating sticky foams, and microwave pain rays. The vast majority of these technologies, the CEF confides, were actually developed for local police to use against anti-war and civil rights protesters in the 1960s. This is the government documents. The Marines plan to infiltrate targeted cities by going underground. Quote, sewer and underground utility systems offer one of the most clandestine avenues for penetrating the urban environment. Urban Warrior documents state, the planning was that troops would be equipped with air quality sensors. They would slither through sewers and underground tunnels on specially built sleds. But as a practical matter, the training manuals did advise that, quote, the firing of conventional weapons in an environment with a high methane content may pose an unacceptable risk. To fight in the urban canyons, those are the spaces between skyscrapers on this new urban battlefield, the urban canyons, the 21st century Marine must be prepared to scale the size of buildings like a human fly and skitter from one high-rise to another on rope webs and cable suspension bridges, and to maneuver through cities on paragliders, parachutes, and powered parafoils. The task of monitoring urban friend and foe would fall to an array of unmanned planes like the Dragon drone, which would prowl the urban canyons, sending TV images to controllers as far as 150 miles away. These drones could hover outside windows, they could place remote sensors on streets or in buildings, and they could also drop chemicals and explosives on the people below. The military has developed urban war weaponry that is truly astonishing. It would enable U.S. forces to shoot over the tops of skyscrapers, targeting enemy troops hiding on adjacent streets. Other weapons can blast holes through steel-reinforced high-rises, destroying the inhabitants of a specific room on a particular floor deep inside a high-rise. Self-loading automated fire and forget weapons, like the Dragonfly mortar, can be parked in intersections, hidden inside buildings, and then controlled and fired by gunners sitting in front of computer screens on warships floating 12 miles offshore. The Pentagon is working very hard to turn soldiers into what they call land warriors, hardwired futuristic Robocops and Kevlar, fighting with one foot in cyberspace, prepared to engage and defeat an enemy on tomorrow's digitized battlefield, which of course includes an urban scenario. In the 1999 Navy Times briefing, General Charles Krulak warned that, quote, the future of conflict is likely not going to be in the great sandy deserts of the Persian Gulf War, but in the growing urban areas along the world's coastlines. Who knows what the next threat is going to be? It could be the environment. It could be our institutions. It could be our banking. Right now, the military is kind of a niche business, Krulak said. But in the future, we are going to have a major impact in our nation. There are few 15-story urban canyons in third world cities. Instead, the photographs that we found in Urban Warrior's planning documents portrayed targets much closer to home. Seattle, Miami, San Diego, New York, and San Francisco. Urban Warrior's conceptual framework points out that Urban Warrior is actually and fundamentally unsuited to third world cities because, quote, the squalor and highly inflammable nature of building materials within many non-Western urban areas, coupled with the wide use of propane or natural gas for heating and services, creates a risk of catastrophic fire. So Urban Warrior exercises really wouldn't work in most third world cities. In 1999, Urban Warrior strategists were already pointing out that our ever more crowded cities will contain all the classic elements for conflict. There will be social, cultural, religious, and tribal strife. Many areas will have scarce resources, including food and shelter. As populations grow and resources shrink even further, the chances for conflict will naturally grow. In a January 1999 article in Armed Forces Journal International, Major General Robert H. Scales wrote, the future urban center will contain a mixed population, ranging from the rich elite to the poor and disenfranchised. Day-to-day existence for most of the urban poor will be balanced tenuously on the edge of collapse. With social conditions ripe for exploitation, the smallest tilt of unfavorable circumstance might be enough to instigate starvation, disease, social foment, cultural unrest, or other forms of urban violence. Moreover, the proximity of the disenfranchised to the ruling elite provides the spark for further unrest. In July of this year, former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson told the House Oversight Committee, that the Bush administration had privately warned Congress that the impending economic collapse might lead to food riots and a declaration of martial law. The U.S. Army War College has openly discussed the use of troops in the event of an economic collapse triggering civil unrest. The latest martial law exercise was held in July of this year. It's not the Pentagon anymore, it's FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, which once again has a cover story of being a humanitarian operation, but as we saw in the aftermath of Katrina, it was woefully equipped to deal with a humanitarian disaster. It was very quick to call in Blackwater security guards to essentially instigate a low level of martial law. FEMA's latest exercise was held this summer. Once again, it was also an international event. It involved troops from Australia, Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. It was staged at different sites in Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. As recently as this week in Pittsburgh, police attacked G20 protesters using not only tear gas, and once again these are unarmed, nonviolent protesters in the streets of an American city. They brought in something called the sonic cannon. This is the first time we believe it's been used on U.S. streets. It's previously been used in Iraq and against Somali pirates. And if you want to see and hear a muted version of what this thing is, you can find it on our website. We posted 2 videos today. I spoke to the press officer, Colonel Mark Thifo, at the end of the exercise. He told me, there is no specific demarcation to say this is humanitarian relief, this is disaster relief, this is mid-intensity conflict. Humanitarian assistance is not the main goal, he confided. We're doing it so we can figure out how to do urban warfare. For all the frightening clarity of the military's plans, the document left one vital question unanswered. What happens after the Marines swarm ashore and successfully seize a city? At what point would they stop blasting holes in the urban infrastructure? That's one of the difficult points, Thifo told me. When do we get out? Who defines how we get out? He didn't have any answers. As a postscript, after the investigative articles that I wrote appeared in the press, the military took down all of the images of American cities from their websites. You can no longer see those. And if anybody's interested in an extended version of this report, it's available on today's posting at environmentalistagainstwar.org. Thank you very much.